Are live. Hello, everyone. This is My Two Cents. Welcome to the September Patrons Hangout number 1. To my surprise, this is unusual, but we actually, of my patrons who usually participate, the only one here right now is Night Shift 10,000. But that's okay. He and I will chat it up for a little bit. This might end up being a shorter stream, but if anybody else shows up, great. If not, Night Shift's still a patron. He's been one of my longest standing, highest supporters, so he has the floor to talk about whatever, but otherwise anyone who's watching will also keep an eye on the comment section as well. So Night Shift, hello.
Hey there, what's up?
Not much. I'm going to be honest, I've had a very long week. I'm still pretty tired, but always up to have a good conversation about whatever. I was trying to have an episode of 2 Day with 2 Cents earlier this week to respond to the Democratic debate. I ended up not having enough time with everything I had going on. Although I will say, and I didn't really even get to watch the debate either, although from the clips I saw, it was pretty darn hilarious. Everyone's been tweeting about how Beto O'Rourke was willing to straight up admit, yes, I want to come get your AR-15. And then there was a Texas representative, here, let me find it on Twitter. So Beto says... All right, I'm pulling up his Twitter. Let's see if I can find the actual tweets.
Okay.
Or you know what? Actually, I know it's on my Twitter feed. I responded to a tweet from David Hogg, with which I can find the actual tweet I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Briscoe. So Beto O'Rourke tweeted, "Hell yes, we're gonna take your AR-15." Briscoe Kane, who is another Texas representative, if my understanding is correct, tweeted out that my AR is ready for you, Robert Francis. And then Beto responded saying that this was a death threat and proof that he should not have an AR-15. David Hogg also said, if you threaten to kill a presidential candidate, you should not have a gun. Well, for one, he did not threaten to kill him. He said, if you come take my AR-15, it's ready for you. Hence, if you try to steal from me, I will defend myself.
Yeah.
Beto's an idiot. He's proven that he is. However, I'll give him this. At least, unlike most Democrats, at least he's honest. Yet he said, yes, I do want to take your guns.
Yeah, he gives us a little preparation time.
Yeah, I mean, most of them lie and say, no, we don't want to take your guns. But they try, they use some kind of verbal judo to try and find a way of saying, no, I don't want to take your guns, but I do. At least Beto just says it. Yes, I want to take your guns.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I don't understand why he's even in the race anymore. He's white, he's rich, and he doesn't speak Spanish very well, according to what I hear from that first debate. He's basically everything that the Democratic Party is ragging against, so...
Well, here's the thing. Neither is Bernie Sanders, but he's still hanging in there, too. God.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bernie's at least Jewish, so he can play that card.
Well, that's true. Yeah, let's see Beto. Let's see him try it. Let's see him try to come for the firearms. It might be kind of entertaining, actually.
Yeah, and you know what I find hilarious in all this is what I haven't looked into this for a while, but the last estimate I read, there's something like 360 million firearms in the United States. More firearms than there are people. There are still plenty of Second Amendment, however liberal the country's becoming, there are still plenty of Second Amendment rights supporters who own more than 100 guns, who absolutely would exercise their Second Amendment right to protect themselves if the police ever came to their house to take their guns. Not to mention, I reckon there are plenty of police officers who believe in the Second Amendment, plenty of military members who believe in the Second Amendment. So at best, if the government really did try to confiscate all firearms, one, how are you going to find them all? There are more than there are people. And two, how many lives are going to be lost, as you'd have to have thousands of heavily armed federal agents going door to door. And even then, you're probably going to lose a substantial amount of that from freedom-loving Americans who will exercise their Second Amendment rights to protect themselves.
Right. I mean, okay, so Yeah, I think the number officially of armed Americans is supposed to be 80 million, but like the unofficial number is like 101 million or 110 million armed Americans, and you're never going to be able to take from those people. I mean, you'd be lucky if those people didn't rise up against you. I mean, 110 million American or 110 million Americans, you're not going to be able to fight that. You're just not. No government body could ever fight something like that or a force that large.
Oh yeah, I've brought it up multiple times on these streams before, but again, the Soviet Union, not a single plan by the Soviet Union to invade the United States involved crossing the state line into Texas.
Right.
Specifically because even a fully armed Soviet mechanized brigade predicted that they would sustain such heavy losses due to the heavily armed Texans that it wouldn't be worth it. JC Armitage says, and don't discount 3D printed guns, correct? 3D printed guns basically made outlawing firearms as effective as trying to stop illegal downloading of music or movies off the internet. You can declare it illegal, but how are you going to stop it now?
Right.
Mm-hmm. G Devil says, let's make this next year no vote 2020. I think that would be cool.
God, that would be great.
That would be great because lest anyone be confused, Donald Trump's no better. He's proving himself to be pretty anti-Second Amendment as well, not to mention he has not followed through on virtually any campaign promise of his. The economy is going to crap, and he's demanding that the Fed cut interest rates again. Exactly what he criticized Obama for doing. He's a fraud like the rest of them. Now, admittedly, he's a more entertaining fraud, but still a fraud.
Well, and even speaking of firearms confiscations and whatnot, if he tries to pass red flag laws or the red flag laws, if he tries to do that, he's also kind of rearing for a civil conflict as well. He's basically no better than Beto, and it's gonna yield the same results. So yeah.
And honestly, the whole discussion about red flag laws, I mean, I'm disturbed at how many people who are traditionally known for being pro Second Amendment, pro owning firearms, who are coming out in favor of red flag laws, and they're saying, you know, I believe in the right to own firearms, but if there was a safe legal process by which family members or people who closely know these individuals recognize the warning signs, you'd have to go through a legal matter in court, and the person would have an opportunity to appeal. It would be a good way to keep us safer by recognizing these red flag laws. But again, the question they're not asking, okay, who ultimately is getting to decide what a red flag is? It would be the judge. How are you going to stop some anti-Second Amendment judge from saying that, tweeting that tweeting a picture of yourself in a "Make America Great Again" hat is a red flag, and you should have your firearms confiscated. Further, when you're given a chance to make an appeal, how exactly are you going to appeal? What standard of proof is going to be employed? Again, that's all. Ultimately, it's the government. It's the judges, the state actors in place that are going to be making those decisions. And if you think there's a way you can stop it from being abused, you're wrong. Now, I'm not saying. Now, for the record, I'm not saying that there aren't red flags in that some of these crazy mass shooters do in fact exhibit certain behaviors before they actually commit their acts of violence, but that doesn't justify red flag laws. It justifies keeping an eye on those people and being prepared.
Exactly. And I mean, that's the thing. It gives other people more control over your firearms than you actually have. I mean, if somebody wants to say that they thought you were dangerous or they thought you were doing something, that would warrant a full federal investigation, and you could not only have your firearms taken away, you could probably end up in prison. I mean, it depends on how far they're willing to extend these laws, and that's a huge problem. That will definitely not come without the deadliest strings attached, and that is just something that cannot be allowed to pass. And unfortunately, a lot of the Trumpkins, a lot of the people that voted for Trump who are supporting this are basically, they were before Trump, they were saying, I'll never give up my guns. Obama can come for my guns, and he's gonna, he's gonna get driven off. But now all of a sudden they're saying, oh, tread me harder, daddy Trump. and it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous to see that, and oh god, it just I know that there are still people out there that take their gun rights seriously, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating to say the least at how a lot of people are willing to surrender that just because their guy got into the White House.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, it further shows that people don't even really take their own policy positions seriously. People, when George W. Bush was in office, the war, wars in the Middle East were totally unjust. Then Obama rolls in and commits however many times more drone strikes, and they don't care because it's our war now. Obama's in office.
Right. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
you can see the same with Trump. When Obama's in office, all the hardcore Republicans, you try coming for my guns, but then now Trump's in office. Now our man's in office, so we don't really care.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. J.C. Armitage says the no-fly list is a good indicator of how red flag laws would work, and you're correct on that point. Terrorist watch list is the no-fly list. These arbitrary lists where any federal agent can put any American citizen on that list for any reason. You don't even know you're on the list, so you have no means to appeal.
Right.
Exactly. There's no if you have legitimate reason to say you can't. What it comes down to is if someone has not, you cannot punish someone for a crime they might commit. The punishment must come after the crime. Now, if you have legitimate reason to think, I mean, I'm not denying, again, that there are red flags. If you have legitimate reason to think a person is dangerous and is going to commit a crime, then that is justification. Do an investigation as much as is possible without violating that person's rights. I mean, hire additional security to keep an eye on that person. Be prepared for in the event that you can stop that crime if it takes place, but you cannot throw someone in prison and violate their rights because they might commit a crime in the future. I mean, that is 1984 Minority Report. Everything else.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what that is. Oh gosh.
Mm-hmm. See, you got some more people jumping in here. Ann Capotaku, Volnos, Chaos Jumper, Tinseltown Queen. Hello. Chaos Jumper says, Trump supporter, how dare you take our gun laws while wearing those dirty boots?
I want to get into this. Have you heard anything about the boycott ABC thing that's going on in the Democrats?
Oh, yeah. So this, I saw that basically a Cambodian American, someone who is running a Republican has previously run for Congress. She's a younger woman. Ran an ad that aired on ABC that it starts with a picture of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and then from the center outward, the picture burns up, and then you see a bunch of pictures of dead bodies, basically people from Cambodia, the Soviet Union, Venezuela, basically actual communist countries throughout history. You see, they show pictures of death and destruction that took place in these countries. And the point of the ad is that AOC doesn't know squat about what she's talking about. The ideas that she is propagating have been tried, and they've left all this death and destruction. Well, AOC tweets back and says that because the picture of her face burned up, this is racist. The Republicans are, they hate her because she's a woman of color. And it's so utterly horrifying. In fact, I actually responded to a tweet from Ilhan Omar. She says, this is horrifying to watch. When will the Republicans learn how to offer ideas and solutions without stroking fear and inciting violence? Enough is enough. They need to pull this garbage off the air and issue a policy to AOC.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Democratic candidates and Democratic individuals are saying that.
Yeah.
My God, if the hypocrisy was any larger, it would be an atomic explosion. Good.
Oh, yeah.
God.
And again, the name of the person who created this ad is Elizabeth Heng. I'm watching the ad right now.
Yeah.
It's what I tweeted out in response to this was, naturally, the Democrats are more horrified about AOC's face burning than the real bodies of real people who died under socialism. Get your priorities straight.
Exactly. God. You got to be kidding me. Oh, it drives me nuts. I mean, good Lord. And yeah, I mean, it's not like it's not true. AOC, she is advocating these things, and so are most of these Democratic candidates. I mean, again, Bernie Sanders, they're advocating for systems that have led to the deaths of millions. When are these people going to learn?
Oh, they won't. They suffer from what's the this time. You can call it whatever you want. I've come to using the term the this time fallacy. It never worked before, but don't worry, this time it'll work.
It'll work now, yeah.
Joseph Stalin just wasn't as smart as I am. This time, just putting me in charge and everything will be perfect.
Oh, of course, yeah. And and yes, referring back to that speech by what's his name? Oh God, we referenced him. We talked about him. Basically, was like, yeah. I mean, if you had gotten your communist utopia, there would have been people waiting to take you out whenever.
Jordan Peterson.
Yes, him. Yeah, him. It's basically referring to his speech. Yeah, you can try to implement your socialist utopia, but as soon as you show weakness, someone's going to take your ass out, or you're going to be just as brutal as the brutal dictators.
He says, you're not that good, and even if you were, there'd have been someone right behind you waiting to shoot you and take over.
Absolutely.
Yep. Gotta love Jordan Peterson.
Oh, yeah.
Well, again, I know the moment I say that, somebody's going to bring me a clip of something Jordan Peterson said once. Okay, I'm not saying I agree with everything he's ever said, but he is a very smart individual.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, joy.
Now, that does bring me to another point of that I wanted to bring up about something Bernie tweeted earlier. And just to everybody watching, if you have anything you'd like us to talk about, by all means, now's the time to do it. So if there's some topic on your mind you'd like us to discuss, please do.
No, please.
Okay, so here we go. Bernie Sanders says, unlike Trump, I did not grow up in a wealthy family. My family lived in a rent-controlled building, and that most minimal form of economic security was crucial for our family. All families should have that. We need a national rent control standard.
Oh,
okay, yet again, more economic illiteracy. Rent control does not actually create more apartments. It only forces you to charge less for the apartments that are there, which means that there is greater demand for apartments. And as Thomas Sowell has shown in Basic Economics, rent control typically allows rich people to own more apartments than they otherwise would, not poor people to have apartments.
Exactly. Just doesn't work. What happened? What happened? Am I still on?
Now, Chaos Jumper says, AOC and the Democrats, Trump is a white supremacist. He must be impeached. Republicans show an ad about AOC and socialism. AOC and Democrats say, why are you so unkind to your opponents? I agree. I would just say the term they're using is not unkind. It's racist. Because basically they don't care about unkindness anymore. It's just racist. Everything you say is racist. PewDiePie donates $50,000 to the ADL and he's still racist.
Oh, hold on. I want to read this off. Okay, so we were talking about H.P. Lovecraft a minute ago before we went live, and I'm seeing a picture of H.P. Lovecraft right now next to a picture of Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg, and they actually do look a little bit alike. I thought that's what this was going to be about, but no, it says one created an unspeakable abomination that wants to consume as many human souls as it can, and the other is H.P. Lovecraft. Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh jeez.
For those who are not familiar, H.P. Lovecraft is a horror / I guess fantasy author who wrote a series where there's this book called the Normonomicon that releases all these things from the dark underworld, such as the god Cthulhu. I've not read any of his stuff, but there was a rather hilarious South Park episode where Cthulhu, the dark god, is released, and Cartman befriends him. The two join forces to destroy synagogues around the world and kill Justin Bieber.
The killing of Justin Bieber, though, that much I've got to praise them for.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, y'all should look it up. Cartman and Cthulhu. There's a catchy little tune.
Oh, that was like that was basically like a parody of the Totoro, My Neighbor Totoro, the theme song to that.
Yes.
Yes, it was supposed to be a parody of that. I thought that was really funny.
Mm-hmm. I'd play it, but I know I'll get a copyright strike for doing that. So
yeah, exactly. Oh shoot. Actually, I was going to do this. I'm still planning on doing this, even though it's a few months old. I was going to make a video about Mini AOC, the girl, the little girl who
Ava,
was
yes,
kind
the
of
one who was forced off social media because her family received so many death threats.
yes. I'm still planning on making a video about her and about that whole situation. And I know this is kind of a spoiler because I wanted to surprise, but you know that song about bullying that was on South Park?
Yep. Yes, the one where they're told to make a video campaign about bullying, and Stan directs a music video where starring Butters.
Yes. I was actually going to use that song at the end of the video, and I'm still planning on doing that. So keep an eye out for that one. I just wanted to give a shout out for that.
Okay. Sounds good. I am still mad about that. Her videos were so hilarious, and of course, the left has to ruin everything.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, she's an 8-year-old girl. I don't particularly blame her family for pulling her off after getting death threats. But
exactly. Yeah. I don't know. Actually, I would suggest, back on the topic of H.P. Lovecraft, I would suggest anyone get into that because I've read most of his books. And the guy was, even for his time, was an absolute horror genius. And okay, so a good example of like a parallel of him, you know Neville Longbottom from the Harry Potter series?
Okay.
Do you remember Neville Longbottom from the Harry Potter series at all?
I've seen the movies. I can't say I'm terribly familiar with the character. If you tell me a little bit more, I might remember it.
Yeah, Neville Longbottom. He was kind of raised by his grandma. His parents, both his mom and dad, were like cursed into insanity, and he was kind of like an external character, but he actually played like a heroic role every now and then. But his entire character was based on H.P. Lovecraft, the writer, because like H.P. Lovecraft's mom and dad were both declared insane. He had to go. From being a child, a teenager, and even a young adult before they died. He went and visited them in their mental hospital, and it kind of shaped his worldview and everything. And he wrote books around that and around just like dreams and nightmares that he had, and that's kind of where he came up with the concepts that he did. And that's where he came up with the theories about insanity that he came up with, and it's really intriguing. And a lot of his works are really ahead of their time. So like the crab people from South Park, the crab people from South Park, that was actually an HP. Yeah, that was actually an HP Lovecraft concept. That was actually out of one of his books. And I'm really surprised to actually see like a Lovecraftian reference that was that early on in South Park. But then they came out with the Cthulhu one, which is one of his more famous. It's one of his more famous concepts is Cthulhu, and it's gained a lot more popularity in the last couple of years. But I would suggest any of his books, especially it's not Call of Cthulhu or Shadow over Innsmouth, but there's one called Haunter in the Dark.
Okay,
and that one, yes, the book Haunter in the Dark, that's a really good one. That's actually a really good one. I would definitely suggest that anyone, if you get the time, please read that because it's an incredible work. But yes, his stuff is great, and if you ever get the chance, please read it.
Okay. I'll be honest, I don't read a whole lot of fiction anymore just because with the amount of time I have. I have not. Like when I was in high school, I read a lot of fiction. I can't really say I do anymore. I just don't have the time for it, and everything else I'm trying to read. But the last book series, like just fiction for fun book series, I read was I think probably like my senior year in high school. I read the Aragon books.
Oh,
you ever read those?
Yes. I read the first one. So
okay, it was originally supposed to be a trilogy. There ended up being 4. I liked them.
Mm-hmm. I thought they were pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Saw the movie as well. The movie was absolute crap, but the books were great.
Unfortunately, that's kind of a trend between movies and books and whatnot.
Yeah, unfortunately, most of the time.
Honestly, I know I'm shilling this. I'm kind of shilling out my stuff here, but I was originally doing this as a freelance project, but I am probably going to post these to Wattpad. Speaking of Cthulhu, I was actually working on it's a book quadrilogy where there's a main character and he's been chosen by God to basically fight these four godlike demons that the devil has created, and it is kind of based on Abrahamic and Christian kind of story. Yeah, kind of like the stories from the Bible or the Quran and whatnot, but it's mainly based around like Abrahamic kind of stories, kind of like that. And it's where this hero has to fight these four creatures that Satan has created. One of them is Cthulhu. One of them is actually Cthulhu, but they all represent an element. They all represent one of the four elements. And there's like a demon of the earth, a demon of water, which is Cthulhu, a demon of the wind, and a demon of fire. And it's going to be this big quadrilogy. I don't know if it's going to be good, but if I do post it, just look for that in the future on Wattpad, please.
Okay, sounds good. You can go and post the link to your Wattpad if you want.
All right.
I have, for those who may not be familiar with that, Wattpad is essentially the YouTube of books. People just write books and post them on the internet. You can search there. You'll find best-selling novels on Wattpad. You'll find, books that look like they're written by third graders. But it's the YouTube of books.
Yes. Some are excellent,
I see.
some are crap.
Tinseltown Queen says she has a Wattpad. Oh, and we were cool. There's another one joining us, Nate the Volunteerist. Let's get him in here.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Nate.
Nate, what's going on?
Just woke up.
Okay,
welcome.
no problem. Welcome.
Oh, I do have very exciting news. That is, after you guys want to finish whatever you're talking about.
Oh, no problem. We started talking about the Democratic debate this week, and then we just got into the topic of books. So, by books, I mean fiction for entertainment, not anything intellectual.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead. What's your exciting news?
I have a very special guest coming on next week.
Oh, yeah.
I see.
It is Blooded the Brave, the ANCAP rapper.
Yes. Awesome.
All right, so I'll say of all those in the community, Nate has done the best job of getting special guests on his show.
Yeah, I think Blood the Brave is probably going to be my biggest episode since David Friedman. I think he's going to beat David Friedman into getting over 1,000 views. So it's going to be huge. And of course, Blood the Brave told me that he's going to share the link to the show on his Instagram, which has over 7,000 followers. That's what he told me. So,
okay, yeah. That's pretty cool.
Now we just got to get Eric July on your show. That would be great. That would be incredible.
Oh yes. Well, it depends on how big things get. So,
yeah.
See what happens.
Mm-hmm. Ugh. Oh joy.
All right, let me look. I see a bunch of new comments came in. I didn't necessarily see them all, so let me look back through quick.
So, Tinseltown Queen said, "Good morning, Nate."
That's awesome. Oh, shoot. Are either of you old enough to that you remember the Nokia cell phones that used to be out in the early 2000s?
Yes, yeah. I do.
Those ultra durable, ultra strong Nokia phones that you just could not break.
They don't make those anymore?
They said they were bringing them back. I kind of missed the durability of those things.
Oh,
I mean, those things were hard as rocks.
You can still buy them. I know. I know a lot of businesses still buy those older phones just because they don't want their employees, playing around with smartphones, and because they're heavy duty and don't break when they're dropped.
Exactly. They were basically the Chuck Norris of phones.
Okay. Crip says, "Did you read the Communist Manifesto during high school? Get it because it's fiction."
Right. Come on,
You know,
we want good fiction.
yes. You know, the Communist Manifesto was not actually required reading when I was in high school, though I suspect it probably is now.
Oh, Lord.
It's too bad 1984 is no longer required.
No, yeah.
Oh, God, really?
Honestly, I try to think back to the only books, like all the books that were required reads when I was in high school: Little Women, The Scarlet Letter, I don't know, those are To Kill a Mockingbird. Those are all, of course, those were all books for English class, of course, but those are the only ones that I stick with my mind as I remember being books we had to read.
I did read Matilda. That one shows how, Roald Dahl basically took his experience on when he grew up in school and how really bad it was, and he put pretty much all of his experiences that he could think of in the book. So you want to see how tyrannical schools can be, read Matilda.
Okay. Tinseltown Queen asks, "Did you have to read The Great Gatsby?" I remember reading excerpts from it during English class, but it was not a required read. I don't know. Did either of you read The Great Gatsby?
I had to read it.
Okay.
I did. The only required reading I remember was the school I went to had us read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. That was the only one, and luckily I'd already read it. But I mean, it was kind of fun to be able to. It was kind of fun to be able to read that again, go through that again, and of course I was that smug asshole that knew everything that was going to happen and was blowing everyone's minds with what was about to happen and whatnot. Yeah, I was kind of like that smug asshole who read the books, who read the Game of Thrones books and knew everything that was going to happen in the shows.
Okay, yeah. I would have. I read The Lord of the Rings when I was in middle school, so I would have loved if that had been required reading. It would have made high school a lot easier. I see G Devil says he had to read Charlotte's Web. So yeah, everyone has their own unique high school experience as to what's on their required reading list. But I also remember reading a lot of Shakespeare. G Devil asks, "Who remembers when the razors were like having an iPhone today?" Oh, are you saying, G Devil? Are you saying like when that was the coolest phone to have?
Oh yeah,
yeah, I do remember that.
I remember that too. That was fun.
I think when I was a freshman in high school, all the cool kids had flip phones with cameras. Like if you had a flip phone with a camera, you were super cool.
Oh yeah.
Tinseltown Queen says that texting sucked on those. Yes, texting was pretty hard because you had to use the just the 9-digit. You either had to type in like you would to get the right letter, or the phone had to basically autocorrect for you. It took practice.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that conversation died down pretty quickly. Let me quick look through my Twitter feed and see. Chaos Jumper said it, but it was so worth it to be cool. Yes, I do remember. Those that were good at texting were super cool. You know, it's funny that I remember. You always remember your parents telling you you'll look back on yourself in high school and realize how dumb you were. And I absolutely, yes. When I was in high school, I thought I was pretty cool, and now I laugh looking back on that.
Same, definitely same for me too. Then again, me and all of my friends that I had, even just kids that I knew, we were all pretty annoying though.
I didn't really fit in, so.
Okay.
And
Well, lest we get on the subject of high school memories, let me get on my Twitter feed and find another topic of conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, unless people want to talk about high school, but I feel like this is going to become a pretty sad stream pretty fast if we do that.
Let's not.
I mean, I was literally into writing goth poetry. God. Oh, don't ask me what I was thinking.
Wait, you said you were writing goth poetry?
Back in high school, yes.
Okay, is this something you did for your own sake, or did you ever share it with anybody?
I shared it with all my friends. We basically did our own poetry slams together. I was one of those kids.
Okay. Let's say I had a very close friend in high school who started writing poetry in an effort to impress a girl. It had the opposite effect.
I did that too. It did have the opposite effect. God damn.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Crip says it's not mandated, but I've talked to my debate teacher about libertarianism, agorism, voluntarism, and anarcho-capitalism, and she really likes the concept. So when you say talked to your teacher, are you saying you want to debate those topics in debate, and she wants to debate them? Because that's pretty cool. She also said that when she teaches the Marxist interpretation of certain stuff, she puts it as something that may or may not be wrong, I think, or just an opinion. I don't know, LOL. Well, I wouldn't call Marxism an opinion. I'd say at this point is an objective falsehood. What I do appreciate, I don't know who here has read Karl Popper before. He was a philosopher of science who's famous for espousing the view of falsificationism. In other words, he differentiated between a view can only be said to be scientific if it is in principle falsifiable. And if something is unfalsifiable, it may or may not be true, but it is not. He'd consider it a pseudoscience or a metaphysical issue as opposed to a scientific issue. And applying this to Marxism, Popper basically said that Marxism was a scientific theory because it made actual testable predictions about what would happen in the future. However, the theory was then falsified when Marx's predictions didn't come true. But he said Marxism now ceases to be a scientific theory because all the modern-day Marxists have basically taken everything Marx said and just redefined it in a way that no observation could ever prove it to be true or false. So it can't be called a scientific theory.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Crypt, if you want my Discord link, go to my YouTube channel, go to the community tab, and I recently posted a link to it that never expires.
Tinsel Town Queen said, use the liberty, young Skywalker.
Yes. We ANCAPs are like Jedis.
That we are. The older Jedis because the new Star Wars suck.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is a top. I'm just going to point this out because it's interesting. Most of these live streams, Star Wars ends up coming up at least once.
That's because it's awesome.
Yes, but it's funny how people within the ANCAP community tend to have similar interests, like even interests that aren't directly related to libertarianism, but one way or another, I've noticed most of my followers are into Pokemon, Star Wars, a lot of the other various things. I mean, it makes sense. Like you gravitate to people with similar interests, but
exactly.
Finding out Tinseltown Queen has a Wattpad, Night Shift has a Wattpad. I don't actually write on Wattpad, but I do read stuff there. So.
Any Star Trek fans here?
I will say not to the degree that I'm a Star Wars fan, but it's entertaining.
How's the? Oh, sorry.
I can't be justly be called a Trekkie. I don't know it well enough, but I've watched Star Wars. So,
does anybody like the new Star Trek?
Discovery?
Or you're saying like the new one with Chris Pine?
Or that, or the movies that J.J. Abrams directed.
Yes. The with Chris Pine as Captain Kirk. I thought they were. I've heard from it was one of those things where if you were a hardcore old school Star Trek fan, you didn't like them, but if you were just a moderate fan or someone who knew nothing about Star Trek before you saw those, you were usually okay with it. Which I'd say I probably fall into that latter camp.
Yeah, that's probably what's going on with the Star Wars. I suspect, the very hardcore old school Star Wars fans, they like the old ones, not the new ones. So I don't know.
Well, you bring up a valid point in that I would wonder, take what's the youngest generation Z now, the ones that are 10 to 12 years old.
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay, I'm not sure if that's the right term. I would be curious when that generation is 20, 25, go back and ask them, okay, you guys were the first generation that as children would, in principle, could have watched Star Wars 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in that order. Of all the various trilogies, which ones do you like best? That I would like to know, because everyone from our generation and beyond, saw 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, 3, and then the new Star Wars. They would be the only generation that could principally watch them in chronological order and then decide, without having all that previous knowledge, which ones they liked best.
Yeah, honestly,
Chaos Jumper, I did see your comment about that. I caught a Mew in Pokemon Go. For those of you who are in my Discord server, you'll see I posted a screenshot of I did catch a Mew in Pokemon Go. All you got to do is finish the. It's one of the special events here. I'll pull that up for those that are interested. But
plus, I must be one of those weird people because I like the second one, Star Trek Into Darkness. It's just Star Trek and Star Trek Discovery, or not Discovery, but the third one, the third movie with Chris Pine and whatnot. Didn't so much like those, but I did like Star Trek Into Darkness because I liked the whole Benedict Cumberbatch Khan, and the fact that they brought Khan and whatnot into that, and it was actually also kind of like Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan.
Yes, and it was essentially a reimagining of that story, right?
Yeah. Pretty much. Well, it was actually more a reimagining of the second episode of Star Trek, the original series, because that was I believe it was the second episode where we got introduced to the villain Khan, and it was supposed to be a reimagining of that, but it did have a lot of elements of Wrath of Khan in it, which I thought was actually really cool.
Okay. Just got Pokemon Go open to answer that question. A mythical discovery. If you finish the special event, A Mythical Discovery, you get a Mew.
Oh, sweet.
Probably have to leave in a couple minutes so I can get ready for my stream.
No problem. I'm probably going to cut this one shorter anyways. Just, but thanks for coming, Nate.
Oh, yeah.
These are always fun.
Plus, who here is are either of you Star Trek Next Generation fans?
I love that show. I grew up with it.
Next Gen fans. They are doing a kind of a revamp of that series called Star Trek Picard.
Yeah,
it
takes place 20 years after Star Trek Nemesis.
Yeah, it's supposed to be they're bringing in a fusion of Next Generation and Voyager or something like that, because there's going to be characters from both series in it. I thought that was kind of cool.
I don't know a whole lot, but I'm kind of hoping that it works, because I haven't been very satisfied with. I haven't been very satisfied with the new Star Treks. So. Yeah,
Star Trek Discovery. Well, here's something I don't get. Are they going for an origin story of the Borg in that show? Because God, there was an episode. It was like somebody got turned into a Borg in that series, or somebody got turned into the first Borg, and I didn't get it. I mean, are they going for an origin story of the Borg in that? Because that's
I don't know.
That's a really bad idea given the history of the Borg. So yeah, I mean, I'm not terribly impressed with Star Trek Discovery. So
Yeah, I've never watched it, so
I'm hoping Star Trek Picard works out.
Okay. Tinseltown Queen asks, "Does anyone remember Galaxy Quest?"
Yes.
Is that's? I'm pretty sure. Yes, that's the spoof. It was a movie that's a spoof on Star Trek. Was that the one with the activate the Omega 13?
Yes.
Okay, then yes, I do remember that.
Oh my god, that was like oh my gosh, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love that. It had some of the best characters in it. The one person that played the guy who was supposed to be the extra or something like that. That really oh gosh.
Yeah, the guy who's the extra who doesn't have a last name. So because his character doesn't have a last name, you know he's gonna die. And as they're going down to the planet, he's like, "What's my last name? I don't have one. I'm gonna die."
You have a last name. Do I? Do I? I prove it. Number 6. He starts freaking out. It was the best thing ever. Oh my god. It was the best.
Okay. JC Armitage, to answer your question, yes, there will be a second one of these in September. So those who want to get on the conversation, just head over to Subscribestar or Patreon or Bitbacker. Nobody's used that one yet, but it is still available. Rex, to answer your question, just Google search Nina Agdal. That is who is on the thumbnail. The reason Nina is in the patron's thumbnail is we used to share weekly hotties during these streams. So I'm hesitant to do that because with StreamYard, it seems every time I try to screen share, I end up getting kicked from the stream. But we'll see if we can get that back eventually. StreamYard has made a number of improvements. Yes, Rex, you were clickbaited. Congratulations.
Nice.
Oh, it's been great, but I gotta get going. I'll see you all at my show.
Okay, right, sounds good. Nate. And for those that are interested, check out Nate's stream. That's starting at in just another 13 minutes, I guess.
Yep. All right. See you all later.
See you later.
See ya. And we're back. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, we're close. We'll finish this at the end of the hour, provided there's still people watching. Mm-hmm. Oh, also, speaking of that guy from Galaxy Quest, he also played another really awesome sci-fi character that I wanted to mention, that I wanted to bring up. They actually they made a movie for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like back in 2004, 2005. And he played the president of the galaxy, Zaphod Beeblebrox. And his performance in that movie was also excellent. His performance was also excellent in that movie. And if you haven't seen that movie, please give it a watch because it is really hilarious. It's more of a British comedy than anything. So I mean, the comedy is going to. I mean, God, how do I describe it? It's not as obvious as comedy. It's not as obvious as comedy is for us, but I mean, it's a really good movie. And I mean, if you haven't seen it, I would definitely suggest watching it because it's an awesome movie. And he actually does do a pretty good Zaphod Beeblebrox in that. And I have the most wonderful cat ever.
You have a cat?
Yes, I have a cat. And she is right here. And I just love her. I just love this cat.
Excellent. For those of you who don't know, I have a rabbit. She lives outside, so I can't bring her on the stream, but...
Oh, darn.
I actually had a male rabbit before her. Said rabbit, neighbor sprayed his lawn with weed killer. Rabbit ate some, rabbit died, so I had to get another one.
Yeah. Oh, you little bitey turd. Oh, you're so bitey. Oh, anyway. What was the other topic you wanted to talk about?
Oh, I think we got through them all. Let me check. There were just a couple things on my Twitter. Oh, yes. Earlier. So, has everybody seen this video of the Ukrainian twerking class that's going around Twitter?
I'm going to look it up right after this. I know that.
Okay, so essentially there's a video of a exercise class in the Ukraine where all these women are twerking as part of the exercise class. It's being tweeted and retweeted 10 times over as evidence of just how morally depraved the West has become. Except the number of people have pointed out, one, it's in Ukraine, two, it's an exercise class. So you can say that twerking is immodest and immoral, but it is an exercise. It's like filming a Zumba class or something. It's not like women are going around just twerking to. They're not twerking at a nightclub. Is the main point here.
Honestly, I also did a video where twerking was part of the subject of the video, and how it was getting like a lot of criticism from some people. And it's just, what's the hatred of twerking? I mean, it's not like these women are like stripping down in front of guys and just like twerking on their pants bulges or anything. They're just twerking as it's just a dance. God, lighten up, people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I try to take. I think there is such a thing as like acting like a whore, but I try to take a more more balanced view. If a woman is dressing, always deliberately trying to show every piece of her body she can, every outfit she can, solely to get more of the more attention of guys all the time, yeah, I have no problem saying you're acting like a whore. On the other hand, people who say anytime a woman wears a bikini, she's being, and goes to the beach, she's being immodest, this is the moral breakdown of the West. It's like, give me a break.
Right. It's like, lighten up, people. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Just because I can't draw a line and define exactly where regular flirting / living crosses the line into being slutty, doesn't mean I can't tell the difference between two clear examples.
Yeah.
Of course, Pepe the Frog says if she breathes, she's a thought.
Yes. Oh my God, yes. Oh,
and JC Armitage says a twerking class in Ukraine, hell truly has frozen over.
Oh, wow.
And hey, Ukraine was a former Soviet bloc country. They're currently engaged in warfare against the Russians. So,
gotta give them that. Oh, okay.
All right, few minutes left, so I guess we'll just stick to the lighthearted stuff for the rest of the time.
All right, sounds good.
G-Devil says Lexi Pantera is a twerk god. Afraid I don't know that one off the top of my head.
Lexi Pantera?
Doing the search now. Hang on.
Well, I've heard the name before. I just don't know who that is. Huh.
I don't either. Or I think he means Lexi Panera because that's the first thing that came up.
Oh, yeah.
See, she's a YouTuber with 2.11 million subscribers. Or you know what? Actually, it looks like she's a singer.
Lexi Panera?
Panera, yeah.
Panera.
Yeah, she's a singer, dancer, something. She's got a bunch of videos here of herself twerking. And she's got a bunch of videos called how to twerk workout, and hey, if twerking takes a significant amount of physical energy such that it's good exercise, then more power to you.
It's called twerking, and it's art.
Yes, it's art. Isn't that the defense of everything?
Yes. Oh, jeez.
Pepe the Frog asks, did you guys get the beta version for the new Call of Duty game? No, I did not. I've actually not played Call of Duty since Advanced Warfare.
Same. I'm not even kidding. I actually refuse to play Call of Duty now. Kind of out of principle more than anything.
Mm-hmm. I'm so disappointed I've not heard anything more about Halo 6 recently. I've always liked Halo better than Call of Duty.
Yeah, same.
And because it actually has a storyline that's interesting and you want to hear more about.
Mm-hmm. I don't get it. Are they planning on 6 being the last one?
Well, the rumor was the Master Chief's going to die in 6. So there might be more Halo games, but as far as main series that follow the Master Chief, 6 is probably going to be the last one.
Okay, I was always wondering about that because I just didn't know if they were planning on having that be the last one or if it was going to continue after that, because it's been literally going since like 2001. And I remember I was like 16 or 17 when the first one came out. So, I mean, how long are they going to keep making these? Not that I'm really complaining or anything. I love the Halo series too. It's just, it's been going on for a long time.
It has, and the game keeps getting delayed. They have a bunch of books that involve the series, which I've read some of them. You know, they've made the short run online series. There was supposed to be a Halo movie that never panned out, but they did the online Forward Unto Dawn and some other like Halo short projects.
Yeah. I remember one had the older sister from Chronicles of Narnia.
Yes, the one who played Susan was in Forward Unto Dawn.
Yes, that was a good one. I like that mainly because she was in it.
Okay.
Of
course,
she's a good actress. I actually think she's a really good actress.
I agree. C.S. Lewis is one of my all-time favorite authors.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Especially when you get in his philosophy side of things. I referenced this in my video response to James Alsop, but everyone ought to read Lewis's essay that we have no right to happiness.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But besides his novel, he's most famous obviously for the Chronicles of Narnia. He wrote a space trilogy. He wrote a sci-fi series that's come to be called Lewis's Space Trilogy. It's the 3 books in that. I've read them all. It's That Hideous Strength, Perelandra, and it's in the opposite order. Out of the Silent Planet, Perelandra, and That Hideous Strength. That's his other fictional series. But then he wrote a bunch of other stuff on the topics of religion and philosophy, Mere Christianity, his apologetic of Christianity. He wrote a number of essays on philosophical issues. He was a good author.
Yeah.
Like I said, Tinseltown Queen, the Screw Tape Letters is another one of his religious writings.
I read that, and it was back when I was in church. I read that with one of the it was a long time ago. It was back when I was 15 or 16. I read that with one of the youth leaders in my old church, and we kind of read that together and we coordinated that, and that was a really intriguing book.
Definitely.
I look back at that fondly even now. So yeah, I remember that. That was awesome.
All right. G Devil says, "Thanks, Queen. I can't read."
What?
Well, I hate to break it to you, G Devil, but you've been interacting with us all this time, which means and with Tinseltown Queen, which means you can at least read a little bit. All right. Well, I guess that brings us. Yes, I guess that does bring us to the top of the hour. So, thanks everybody for being here to hang out. Like I said, I know this was a short stream. I guess we did the full hour. It was only a few of us this time. There will be a second one this month. Hopefully some more of the patrons will be able to make it in here. If you are interested in getting in on these conversations, subscribe to our Patreon or Bitbacker. All 3 links are in the description. And as always, that is my 2 cents. So take it for what it's worth.